And we can just dance the night away until we get no more. Shake all the hurt away so you can feel and forget who you used to be. For just tonight, could you just dance the night away?
All right, and we are back. We are going to be reading and listening to r/Retailhell. We have about 3 more videos of Guild Wars 2, give or take, after these two that are going to end up having readovers on them since we lost audio on them. Specifically, we lost my mic audio on it, not the game audio. After this, I might upload the rest of Guild Wars 2 that don't have audio problems. I'm not sure if I'll read over them, though, or listen to the bot tell me what the story is about, because I don't know if it's liked. I haven't really kind of seen. It does make for a great game to put audio over because Guild Wars 2 is free and anyone can kind of start up the game outside of, expansions and stuff. But I'm not sure. I'm still kind of on the fence about it. I do enjoy making these ones because relatively they do have a lot of editing, and I do have to record it several times due to proper speaking and trying not to sputter as much. But once they're done, they're actually really easy to edit, and they're quite comfortable to edit, especially since I'm not the one having to reread them and stuff, because I just can't. I tried. Call me a quitter, as my fiance does. But we're going to get into it. Stop blabbering. We are closed. Get out. Oh, God. I wish I could say that to customers. Actually, I have said it to a few customers when I worked at Casey's, because we had a customer who came in and we were almost 30 minutes late out the door because this customer came in. She was one of our regulars, and she was definitely drunk that night. But she didn't come in buying alcohol, so it didn't matter. She came in and she was trying to buy snacks. So my coworker thought she was high. But we ended up telling, at one point, I told her that she wanted to come back in. She got a drink, she got some snacks. Then we locked the door, let her out, locked the door. And then when she knocked on the door because she wanted to get different snacks. And I said, we're closed. Sorry. And she goes, can't you let me in, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, we're closed. Literally, the system I told her that the computers now know we're clocked out. We can't clock in until next morning. Or that we can't log in until next morning. That was a bit of a fib, but not necessarily untrue. Coffee machines are off, lights were off, register was getting ready to be taking the cash out of it. I made a rule that as soon as we start pulling that cash out of the register, it's closed. We're not doing any more because the system is having to try and get the system to go back to the way it was before. It's just not worth it. Anyways, we're going to listen to this one to see what their story is. Maybe it's got some different details compared to mine.
We are closed. Get out. The other night, we were like 5 minutes away from closing when a customer walked in. I went up to her, asked her if she needed help, and let her know that we would be closing in a few minutes. She was a little snippy about that and said that one of our doors being closed was kind of a hint, but okay. Fine. Whatever. I answered some questions about an item and watched as she started messing up what we'd straightened. Annoying, but we were technically still open at the time, so we let her do her thing. Then we hit closing time and she was still going. My manager told her we were closed to no avail. It was pretty clear that she had no intention of buying anything and just wanted to rip the store apart, so my manager asked her if she was planning on buying something. When she said no, my manager pretty much told her it was time to go. The woman got so mad about it and started ranting to my manager about how we should be open later, because look at how many people are in the mall right now. She was insistent that we should be staying open. Mind you, we close the same time the mall does. She was just so nasty about it, like she was offended that we weren't going to decide to stay open another hour just for her. Ma'am, it's not our fault that you waited until right before closing to come in here.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? I had a manager who once said the most beautiful words that would have fit so well with this, and they were her boss, so they had the power to say this. We were one time in the store, and I can't remember what section we were in. I think it was it was Walmart. Walmart doesn't close, at least when they're 24 hours, unless it's something important. And we were closing so that we could get a system update, right? There's system updates. There's natural disasters that can close a Walmart. That's terrifying. When a Walmart closes because of a natural disaster like tornadoes or generators blowing, which is normally the common thing, or extreme heat or winds. Normally it was like tornadoes and storms from where I came from, because that was the more common storms. It's terrifying because especially if the emergency generator goes down. which is normally what causes it. Because if the emergency generator goes off, customers have to leave the store because we cannot work. If there is no registers to open, we cannot work. The amount of times I had customers being like, well, can't you count cash? Sweetie, I can't figure out what the prices of these things are. Oh, well, it's $2.50 something. I can't trust your word. I have to let the machine do it. On top of that, even if we did do that, we have to go back and rebuy all the stuff on your thing and put your cash in there so that we're not over and we can see where our inventory spot is. It's a Walmart to boot. This also happened when I was working at Casey's, but the difference is that Casey's could do that because there was a small enough people that we would just make a list. That's what our boss would do. If they were a regular and we trusted them and whatnot, we would bring up we would like put like the items that they bought and put it aside, and then we would let them ring up. We couldn't always figure out the price, so what we'd end up doing is our customers would pay a little bit more. They'd give us a full 20, and then when they called us up the next time, we'd give them a receipt and tell them what they owed us. So sometimes some of them would give us a 20, some of them would get back to us and just pay us again, right? But that was a very close-knit group, and it was very exclusive because these people were good for the money and they were good customers and respected. If they didn't pay up, then we would consider it a theft. So their name, their number, and the time and date were put down. They were on a piece of paper about it. It happened very rarely, though. Normally, our regulars would just be like, oh, we'll go to the other cases in town, no big deal. Anywho, but the fact of the matter is that my boss one time said, as I got distracted, as in we were closing down the registers, and they were walking in, and they were a group of girls, and they were just shopping around. They've been in the store for at least up to an hour and a half, just shopping, just walking around. They weren't buying anything. They were messing up all the clothes that Kathy had just folded. They were in the jewelry department, looking at jewelry, asking for a jewelry department manager, which meant Kathy had to go grab keys, and it was affecting her stocking and her folding and stuff because of that. And then on top of that, they were over there in the makeup aisle, ruining the makeup while the two associates that were over there trying to stock all the stuff because they had a huge makeup order. So there was at least 3 or 4 pallets over on that side alone. And then plus like 2 extras, I think, that were like the little small stuff, like mouthwash and things. So it was a lot. Okay, I just can't remember exactly, but I remember it was a big day at HBA, and they're over there messing up everything, trying on lipstick, trying on nail polish, which is also really disgusting. Do not do that in a store, okay? If you're going to try and test makeup, look at the little panels or put the nail polish on the panels. Do not stick it to your face or your nails. 1, because it's a theft, and 2, it's just unsanitary. If you're doing it, do you think other people are doing it? Yes, they are. It's gross. And as someone who worked in retail, I know that a lot of Walmart customers and employees do not have the prettiest nails. They've got dirt under them, so you're sharing that. Anywho, so my boss has walked up to them and told them, hey, the store's going to close temporarily for like 2 hours. But we need you out of the store during that time frame when the reset happens because you can't be in the store while this is happening. She's like, why? Well, because the store is technically closed and it's a safety precaution. Because what it is it gives us a moment to work and and it also makes it to where the systems are messing up. Also, it just makes it to where I think honestly part of it was probably vulnerability. It probably was due to the fact that the systems were vulnerable because of potential hacks or malfunctions or whatnot. And it's also probably just to give the employees something to do because if the registers up front are down, the cashiers need to go stock. And if they're not front watching for theft and watching the registers, then they're wasting their time. So they have to get rid of the customers in order to let those associates work so that they can let the system go. It's just more efficient. And it sounds horrible, but it saves them more money in the long run to just do it because it was a nighttime. So my boss walked up to them and said, we're going to close in 2 hours, or, we're going to close for 2 hours. You can come back that time. It was going to be like 3 or 4 in the morning or something. She's like, oh, well, we're not going to stay out that long. And then she's like, are you going to buy something? Because you have 20 minutes to buy something. And she kept warning these girls about the time. And it got to the point where they were like 15 minutes past that time. And my boss walked up to them and said, are you going to buy something? They're like, no, we're not going to buy something. We're window shopping. And then she goes, well, then you can leave. She goes, well, I am the customer. I am right. She goes, customers buy things. You're not a customer. You're window shopping. You're a guest. And she goes, and guests need to leave right now unless you were a customer. She ended up buying like a piece of gum just out of spite. But my boss said, I can't check you out. Like she was going to buy a piece of gum. And she goes, I can't check you out. The register's down, so there's nothing I can do about that. So the girl threw like a $5 or $6 bill down. It was enough to cover the gum and then some. Like, she did it out of spite. She didn't even look at the price. So she just threw a $5 thing down and then walked away. I looked at my boss and said, can she do that? She goes, can you go grab me the gum she just bought and put on this register? And I said, cool. So I did. And it was like Hubba Bub or something. These girls stormed off being a butt. I put it on the register and my boss says, like, is that enough to cover it, or do we gonna have to cover it? She goes, oh, this is more than enough, because I didn't know what she had handed her. I just knew she threw some cash down. She goes, this is more than double what they were paying, would have paid for it. They end up grabbing the cheapest gum there was, and it gets really better after this. So what my boss did is that she put the gum on their belt, and she was gonna wait until it came back on, and she'd scan it like it was a purchase, put the cash in the register as it was supposed to be. Those girls ended up banging on the door and telling, after we locked it, after a few minutes, they came back and they banged on the door, and the janitor talked to them through the door, but didn't actually like open the door. He says, what you need? She goes, I bought the wrong gum. This is not the one I wanted. Blah, 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 blah. He goes, sorry, we're closed, and walked away. He kept sweeping. He walked up to, because I went to break at this point. I got this information from later because I went to lunch. My boss told me later that she started laughing. I came back from lunch. She's giggling her butt off, just snickering. And I said, what is it? What's going on? She goes, those two girls that were in here and that one and their little friend? I'm like, yeah. She goes, they bought the wrong gum. And I'm like, oh, is that good? Is that bad? She goes, oh, no. She goes, it's funny because they bought the wrong gum. And my boss goes, they came back banging on the door wanting their gum that they got the price for. And I said, did they get their change? She goes, oh no. She goes, I ain't giving them change. The registers weren't up. So how was I supposed to give them change? I can't give them change. There's no money in here. And I was like, oh. She goes, so at one point, I guess the after I was on break and stuff, the janitor told her what happened, and she walked over, and the girls were still standing there. It'd been like 4 or 5 minutes since they'd had the encounter with the janitor. And she said, if you want your change, come back at 8 a.m. I'll leave a note for you. You can get it then. Left. Those girls. So she did. She left a note. She scanned the paper. Those girls were gone. She put the money in there. She put an exact change of how much she was supposed to get it. She said 2 girls, and she left it as customer service. And she told the customer service people that if those girls don't come back, she wants the $5 that they didn't take, because they had paid it was like $1 for the gum itself, and they'd paid like $5 or $6 towards it. Whatever it was a decent change, but nothing crazy. And so the next day, the boss came in and they said, yeah, they didn't come in. She goes, then this is mine. And she used it to buy soda for herself. I'm not gonna lie, that was not a bad thing. She's like, there was something illegal about it. And because it wasn't really a tip, it was just that they didn't have change. So she just told them that she pocketed the $5 or $6 and added the change to her register. But the bosses knew what happened, but they just turned a blind eye to it and said, I didn't see nothing. I wasn't up there when that happened. And we're not going to go look at the camera for $5. Our books came out even. No gun was stolen. It's fine. That's another thing, too. These girls irritated the big bosses, too, because they also were told to leave by the big bosses. And so the big bosses, when they heard this pettiness, they laughed over the walkie and said, okay. So don't piss off the upper management. If you're going to piss off anyone, do not do the department managers or the assistant managers, because they will be petty. They will follow the rules by the regulations on paper, but they'll make sure that it's in the spirit of maliciousness and not in the spirit of good faith. All right, we're going to move on to this last video before we move on to the second part of the video. I am kind of babbling more than I should. I'm sorry. All right, this one is demanding to be rung up even though they see you are eating. Oh, no.
Demanding to be rung up even though they see you eating. So a little context. When I take my 30-minute, I take off my tag, headset, and zip up my hood, so I'm literally just standing in black clothes. Yeah. Anyway, I'm off the clock, eating my salad, and was chatting with a customer I was kind of friends with while next to, but not behind, the counter. All of a sudden this dude dumps a ton of crap on the counter and stares at me. Mind you, my face is literally full of food listening to this conversation, and not even in uniform, but dude asks, well, aren't you going to help me? Seriously? My coworker who was covering helped him out and let him know I was on lunch, like it wasn't absolutely obvious, and dude got all miffed and said we should have told him that. Like, really? Use your eyes.
Okay, so this has actually happened to me a few times where I was talking to a coworker at the register and I was on break, or even when I was off the clock. I have had several conversations where I am talking to my coworkers because I'm off the clock and I'm standing there and whatnot. And like, that happens, especially when I get off, like, especially when I'm working at Casey's, right? Because I had a lot of close coworkers at Casey's that I was really real close friends with. I'm still friends with them. I still talk to them every now and then. I have to start talking to them more often. But I had friends that I was spending more time with that I enjoyed the company of beyond just being coworkers. And so I would sit there and chit chat and stuff. And the regulars started to recognize that when they came to me. They're like, "She's still here? It's been an hour." And my coworkers are like, "Yeah, she's talking her ear up." But they'd be equally as invested in the conversation and whatnot. I'd be like, "You'd miss me if I leave." And as soon as I leave, they text me, "We miss you." I'm like, called it. That kind of thing. And when I worked at retail in Walmart, it was the same way too. I normally got into conversations in the back room with my coworkers, but after a long shift at Walmart, you're much more tired and ripped apart than you are when you work at Casey's. It's because in Casey's, I was working at the smaller Casey's, so we didn't have like a kitchen and stuff, but we were more closely knitted with the community, meaning we knew our regulars. We had a lot more regulars coming in, and Walmart was a much more bigger building, and we did have our regulars, but there were so many of them, their faces blurred. Like, it was hard to keep up track of everybody. So your social battery by the time your shift ended was burnt. You were ready to go home, take a shower, and pass out. Right? Eat, sleep, shower, and that's about all you can do when you work at Walmart. All right? It was a lot. Not a complaint from my part, but it is what it is. So, anyways, like, when there was a few times where I'd be at the register and I'd be talking to a coworker. Normally what starts it is I hadn't seen this coworker in a while when I was trying to change at the register, or I was changing at the register and the conversation started with me saying, "Hey, I have a $20 bill under the counter here, under the little tray here. I thought it looked a little suspicious. I've used the marker on it. But let the bosses take that to scan it just to be safe. They're really busy right now. When they were busy when my shift was going on. So if you have a chance to have them check it, great. Because we had a machine and we had little pens that we could use to check them with. And I bought a bunch of those money markers for my coworkers because the store ran out. So I bought them and then I put one or two of them at every register. It was extremely useful because it helped them find more counterfeits. Walmart got mad at me for that. Like, my bosses got mad at me. They're like, "Don't do that. Don't buy stuff like that." And I'm like, "Why? Is it against the rules?" They're like, "Well, no, it might be considered bribery." I'm like, it's to help them find fake money. Some of the money looks real, and some coworkers are not paying attention to every little bill coming through their hand. It's just nice to have. All right. And so when, instead of putting them in each cup, I just had them in my pocket. And so my coworkers would come up to me and they just started taking them in my pocket. That also was another thing that was really funny. I had it's 3 of them in my pocket. I had one on my chest that was mine, that everybody came to know was mine. Not that it mattered. If they asked for it, I'd hand it over. It's not like I was hogging it. But I had coworkers who walked up to me one day and she stuck her hand in my pocket because I was busy with the self-checkout. So because I was like checking people out on that register. Oh, they didn't like it when I did that on the 8th register. The one that's supposed to be the spy register. I would still do it. They didn't like it because they'd have to change up the money, but I didn't care. It kept the line from backing up bakery, which made bakery not get crammed. All right. Screw anything. I was like, "It's a register, right?" I had a coworker, boss who's like, "Well, is it a register?" They're like, "Well, yeah." It's like, "Does it work?" "Yeah." Well, am I allowed to use it as a register?" "Well, yeah." "Then I'm going to use it as a register." They're like, "You're supposed to be watching all the other registers." I'm like, and I am watching all the registers. And I'm like, but also I need the people out of here because they're lining up to the point where they're touching the milk, which is like the first 2 lines in the in like the lineup. Because they had you enter the front door and there'd be their self-checkouts, and then there's bakery right beside the self-checkouts and deli. And then goes on to the grocery section, which is where frozen, but you'd hit frozen first. All right. When they're lined up to frozen and bakery, that section area, it's time to pull check line in, which just means I started pulling people in and saying, "Come here." Some people didn't want me to check them out. They checked themselves out, whatever. Most of the time, customers were like, "Ooh, we can go to a register." So I did that. And the bosses would say, "Well, if you do that, people get the expectation that it's a register." And I'm like, I only do it when it's full. I've told customers this. I haven't had any customers ask me to check them out specifically if there unless there were lines in other registers. Like, I've had customers be like, hey, I don't want to do self-checkout. I have 3 kids I'm trying to wrangle. I don't have time to try and scan this while also putting him down. I had a woman come up to me. She had like her little toddler on her hip. She asked me if I could check her out because she's got them. They're all, they're all cranky. They're running around. She doesn't have time to try and scan them. She said the last time, I was like, oh, sure, come on over. And as I was scanning her stuff, she told me that the last time she had used self-checkout when it was busy like this and she had her kids and they were like this, she goes, I ended up mis-scanning something and I didn't pay for it, so I had to come back after I dropped my kids at daycare to come and pay it back. She's lucky the cashier was nice to me and everything, and they understood, but it was embarrassing, and she goes, I don't want to do that again. So, she had reason for why. Anyways, but they'd get mad at me for that because of that. But I would do that, right? But they started coming into my pocket. As I was sitting there at the self-checkout doing just that, trying to get that line go down so that we're not backed up into grocery. My coworker walked in and she shoved her hands into my pocket and she dramatically put both her hands into her pocket. And we had those deep Walmart pockets. And she pulled out like 3 of those pens. And then she walked away with them. And my boss says, did she just mug you? Like, did she just put her hands in your pocket? And I'm like, yes, she did. She goes, did she just take something important? They weren't really worried. They just kind of giggling. Like, did she take your wallet? I was like, she robbed me of pens. And they looked at me and I'm like, what? You guys said I couldn't put pens in the cups, so people just come to me now. So I'd have like big wads of these money things that I bought off Amazon that worked. Because my boss is like, well, how do we know they work? I'm like, because that's what they are. And they tested it and they're like, okay, well, I had one boss test it and he goes, okay, it works good enough. It's fine. But she came in there, she grabbed him and she gave it to the new girl and she had it for herself and one other coworker who was at the very end. And I looked over at them when I got time because someone made a noise and called me. And I looked over and they all like waved their hands with their pens in their hand. But it wasn't, they couldn't get mad at me that time because it was just coworkers digging into my pocket. I wasn't leaving it anywhere. I was just sharing pens with coworkers. You couldn't argue. Eventually, they end up getting pens for everybody, but I can't remember if it stayed that way or not. But I always, anytime I'm a cashier, I always bring those pens with me. I always have them on me. Anyways, but during that time frame, I'd have customers where I'd be sitting there talking to employees or I'm off the clock or my hoodie's on or whatever. I had customers come up to me when I was off duty, like when I wasn't even clocked in that day. I was wearing casual clothes and she came up to me and she's like, where's this thing? All I said, oh yeah, you're looking for that? It's in hardware. Something like that. And she goes, oh, thank you. She goes, are you on your lunch break? I'm like, oh, I'm off duty. And then she greatly apologized. She goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought you were on duty. You're always here. And I started laughing. I was like, yeah, I'm off. I'm off for like 3 days. I'm on vacation. And she goes, oh, I'm so sorry. She was so apologetic because her daughter worked at Walmart and but she worked at a different Walmart. So she like knew the policy, like where I wasn't supposed to help people. And that was another thing too. I got chewed out for that too, where I was helping people when I was off the clock. And I said, look, before I had a job here, I was helping customers find aisles where I'd be standing with my mom and they'd be like, where's the dog food aisle? And I'd be like, it's 2 down, I had been doing that before I got this job. And I said, and I will continue to do this even after my job. It's not like I am going to the back room and being like walking around the back room with my Mickey shirt on being like, hey, do you guys have this in stock? When I'm off clock. I was like, I'm not going to the back to check anything, but I will grab a coworker and I will tell them where aisles are because because as a customer, I'm an informed customer because I work here too, but I am also a customer and I'm just an informed one and it's okay. I'm like, because if the customers can say, oh, hey, it's this way because I'd seen other customers help each other out, right? So I've always told them that I would do that as a customer. I don't consider telling people where things are part of my job. I consider that just being courteous. So I told him that. My boss was like, well, be careful with that. They can get you in trouble. And I'm like, they're not going to get mad at me if I volunteer the information, right? That's not how that works. They're only worried about people bothering coworkers if the coworker is going to get upset about it because that's what corporate's worried about. They don't want people getting burnt out. And I'm like, I don't get burnt out by doing what I would do as a customer. And it's in any store. Like I can walk into any store I worked at or not worked at. Doesn't matter. If I know where something is and a customer asks me, I'll be like, oh yeah, it's down that way. Or I think we passed it that way. But you might ask a coworker just to be safe. Et cetera, et cetera. Just how it is. But yeah, he should have probably lowered his eye, but retail blindness is a thing. Like he probably just didn't notice. All right. So we're going to end this part. There'll be a part 2 coming up.
Yelled at a boomer off the clock. The front of the store has a lot of caution tape and loads of signage around it right now because the bottle return is being rebuilt. Also, lots of people up on the roof working at any given time. Usually caution tape means don't pass this, it's dangerous beyond this point, right?
Yeah.
Boomer don't care. She really needed to shave 30 seconds off her walk and didn't care if a hammer fell on her head or whatever.
Ooh.
She went under the caution tape instead of around. I immediately told her and the boomer behind her that it was fucking moronic to bypass caution tape. She acted like she didn't do anything wrong and told the cart pusher to tell me to shut up. The cart pusher told her I was allowed to say whatever I want.
Yeah.
Okay, for one, I was absolutely not in uniform nor was I on the clock. That means I wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
That means, and the union supports,
Ooh.
that I can say and do whatever I want within the scope of the law whether or not people recognize me as an employee.
Oh.
I.e., the company doesn't own me. Boomer bitch decided to go to the store manager. The store manager's reaction was, "Why would you go under the caution tape? That's dangerous. The tape is there for a reason."
Okay, for one, I thought when you said yell at them is like they were being rude or hateful to you. Like, because I've had customers do that. I've had customers actually yell and be disrespectful. To be sweet to me, but they will have one cashier they dislike and they will attack them in like their person. There was one time, there was this one woman who was older, right? She was like a grandmother. She didn't like this one cashier. You know why? This one cashier dated her grandson and they broke up after he cheated on her. All right. Now, granted, grandma didn't believe he would cheat on him because her precious grandbaby couldn't do that crap, you know? That kind of thing. But she would bully this girl. She would intentionally be a problem for her on the clock and off the clock to the point with the cashiers at the top. Anytime she walked in, they'd say, "Hey, Susie." I don't remember what her name was actually. She goes, "Hey, Susie, go stock something. Go help home health." They would send her away from the registers. And then when they were asked, all of the cashiers were told to tell her, "Oh, she doesn't work here anymore," or "She's not on shift right now," depending on the time frame. Because there was a time where she ended up like getting a job at a different store. She went to a different retail place in like a different town. But like up to that point, she was there for college because she was just working there for some cash while she goes to college, and then she was going to go and move along, right? She was moving to her dream town or state, something like that. Anywho, but she was a sweet girl. None of us had a problem with her. This woman had a problem with her because her grandbaby couldn't be a cheater, and therefore this girl was the devil, you know, blah, blah, blah. She was hateful to her. One time she was being super sweet to me, like sweet as can be, her voice was honeyed words, and she then turned around. I like walked away from the register after I, you know, switched place with somebody, and I caught her yelling at the girl next door, or yelling at this girl and whatnot. And I walked up to her and I said, "Hey, Susie, how are you? Like, I heard you had did such a good day today. How have you been?" I started being sugary sweet with her. This grandmother shut her mouth up real quick because she saw me, and she didn't want people knowing. She thought that she was so smooth that if she was mean to her when she was a customer, like in her line, or you know, mouthing at her under her breath, that the store didn't know. You know, she was very subtle about it, but everybody knew what she was getting into because Susie told everybody, and the managers overheard it, and the cashiers. You think they don't listen? They are constantly listening to you. And this has a lot to do with the fact that you either zone out and then make mistakes, or you hyper focus and you listen to everything happening. We don't really care about your drama or your life or anything like that unless you bring it up and we see you a lot and you're nice to us. Then we start caring. But we will listen to everything you're saying. So you have to be very careful when you're at the register, just because if you don't want people knowing that you need to get warts for your butt, then don't say anything about how you went to the doctor about it, you know? I didn't have a single customer actually say that specific thing, but I've had customers say things just as inappropriate and be surprised that I'm standing there for a moment. They're like, "Did you hear that?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, Did you understand what we were talking about?" I'm like, "Yeah, you made it very clear." I have seen several teenage boys and young adult men run out of the store in embarrassment after they've realized they've been talking dirty to the girl in the line. Anywho, joking aside, so I walked up to her and I started being sugary sweet with her. I was like, "Oh, Susie, it's so good to see you. You're such a sweet girl. Thank you for taking care of these," making everything that she had like blown out of proportion. This grandmother eventually wandered off. Like, she pestered off after I distracted Susie long enough to have this conversation. And I made sure not to necessarily block the grandma from saying anything. Like, I wasn't like shooing her away via social pressures, but more like I was shaming her in public for being mean to Susie when Susie was such a great employee, because she was. And then grandma obviously walked away. She looks around after she notices that, Susie looks around and when she notices she's gone, she goes, thank you. You didn't need to do that. I'm like, oh, I did need to do that because the woman is petty and she needs to understand that, the best way to handle petty is with sugar. And I told her how sweet I was. And she did do that. She ended up being extra sweet with her because she's like, she just stresses me out. Normally, she just gets really quiet and really meek when dealing with the grandma because the grandma would always find every opportunity she could. She'd even sneak in like with other people and hide behind groups so she could try and catch her at the register. So I told her what I do. When people are being salty and they're being petty with you, be sweet. Because they can't argue with you if you're being sweet and polite. What can they say? How dare you be nice to me? How dare you be sweet? And I said, if you act shy and quiet and timid with them, they're going to take that as vulnerability and they're going to go for the throat, right? But if you're sweet and kind with them and you're like nice with them and you're just being yourself, they're not going to do nothing. So she started doing that. She started smiling at her. She started being sweet with her. And eventually the woman started coming in because she knew she couldn't bully her anymore. Playground rules actually apply in real life when it comes to certain things. Don't be wrong. There were customers who were still mean no matter if you were nice or not, right? But those people are just true to themselves. Still doesn't make them any nicer. It doesn't make them good people, but it does make them who they are. Some of these people are performative, and that grandmother was performative. She was performing this grand, mean grandma act so that she could show honor to her dishonorable grandson kind of thing, which is weird because your family, some people were white knight for other people. That's another term I've heard people say. It's basically what it was. Anywho, so in this story, we'll get back to the story situation. As I was saying, if you yelled at a boomer because they were being rude, I could see it. That's why I thought the story was going. Because I'm reading these, we're listening to these blindly. But the fact of the matter is, one, I am so happy for you that you are in a union. When I worked at Walmart, they were not unionized. I don't think they're still not unionized. They try to unionize, but it's hard to try to fight the corporation that big without issues, But unions are so useful for retail because of this reason. Because the store doesn't own your identity. They don't own you as a person. You're not part of their IP, right? And this makes it to where the business can say that, oh, well, they're unionized. I can't do that. My hands are tied. But it also makes it to where the employees get recognized as an individual. I also like that the cart person had your back saying she can say what she wants. She's off the clock. I've had people say it to me too, because I've also gotten nippy with people. Here's the thing though. I also have told people before, I've had customers be like, well, you're a worker. You can't say that. And I said, no, what I'm saying is I say this because as a customer, I also believe this, And when it comes to caution tape, you can actually get in trouble for that. I'm pretty sure that can get you fined in real life because of the fact that you are trespassing when you do that. Especially if they're doing construction work. If you get hurt on that construction site, say something falls from the ceiling and hits you in the head and clumps you, whether you die or not, or if you get hurt or not, that's not on the workers. That's on you. Do you want that? No? Then stop it. And if they're doing like cement or if they're doing something involving a live wire, you getting in the way could tamper with their efforts. They may have to damage something to save your life, or they may have to re-cement something. So no, you are costing them time and money when they're fixing something, and you will make them have to take longer to fix said thing. So no, the fact of the matter is I would have yelled at her too. And as a customer, if I'd been standing behind you, I'd been like, yeah, woman, that tape is yellow for a reason. Have you not seen like CIS and stuff like that and cop movies and stuff where they have tape like that up? There's a reason for it. It's a do not enter. It's a caution, there is danger ahead. Like, I'd be like, do you still have your license? I would have added it on. That was my favorite thing to do at retail, especially when it wasn't my store. Because I'd go to other Walmarts in the region and I'd go shopping to get stuff, and I'd come in and there would be customers being rude and the employees just telling them the rules, and I'd be like, yeah, that's a rule. And I'd pipe up and be mouthy with them because I didn't work there. They didn't know that. And as soon as the customer walked away, the employee would be like, thank you. You didn't need to do that. And I'd look at them and say, I work at the other the other Casey's or other Walmart, whatever place. And they look at me and we'd have this moment. And they'd be like brothers in arms. I had one guy who did that to me. I walked in. There was a customer getting mad at him because he had asked her to show her receipt because the alarms went off. What happened is she had bought a new cell phone, and the alarm went off, and he was asking to see her receipt. She was mad that he accused her of being like a thief. And I walked in and said, oh, yours binged too? Mine did that last week. She goes, It did? I'm like, yeah. Did you know that anytime you buy a cell phone, sometimes, I was like, sometimes when they try to deactivate it, like when the register, I explained how, like when you push the barcode and everything, I'm like, sometimes when they activate that, it doesn't deactivate the safety precautions inside the box. And she goes, what? I'm like, yeah, that's why it bings. It's like it's a magnet inside the box that bings it, or a barcode or something, some kind of data that sends it off, which is true. It's something, well, it's kind of true. It's half true. There's something in the box that doesn't deactivate. It doesn't mean that it isn't, doesn't deactivate after a while, but there is some safety precautions. Some of that I also feel like they bing it anyways, just to be safe, because some of those higher end stuff are expensive. Like some of those $200 phones, they, even after you deactivate the barcode, some of them will still go off because they are a high end thing, and those codes can be fickle. But yeah, I was like, yeah, that's the thing. I was like, oh, she goes, well, he's tackling me. He's accused me of being a thief. I'm like, oh, they're not accusing you. They have to check. And she goes, what do you mean? I'm like, well, it's like, well, the cell phone company requires them to check. I'm like, if they don't, it gets the store in trouble and they won't sell cell phones anymore, because of the fact that they'll see it as a theft, or it'll take them a little while to have these hiccups filled up. And I explained the cell phones in the Walmart, like the little section, because she bought it from like the vendor there. I'm like, they're technically like a little mini store instead of a mall. They actually like run it because they were buying it. So I don't really think all this was true. I was just telling her this so she would calm down a little bit, because it does come from a vendor, but because some electronic stores at the time had associates in the morning who'd come in. They were from Straight Talk or LG, and they'd be there setting up stuff and selling things. They'd be from an outside source. Anyways, so I was telling her, I was like, yeah, it's like it happens. I'm like, it happened to me yesterday. Just show them your receipt, they'll check it, and then you'd be on your way. It's just a safety precaution to make sure everything went through, to make sure it all went good, blah, 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 blah. So me being a customer and not being uniformed, and her never seeing me, she took my word more than she took his. And I had this elaborate explanation. I don't remember if it was actually true or not. I don't actually care. It just gets people to understand that sometimes systems make us up. And if you didn't steal it, just show them your receipt. And if you don't have your receipt, just say, hey, I just came from registered 9. Can I go grab, here, hold this. I'm going to go grab my receipt. I had that happen to me too. I had an item that was, I think it was like a set of headphones, and I didn't get my receipt. The one time I didn't get it, and it bings off, and he goes, do you have your receipt? I'm like, no, it's at level 9. Here, hold this for me. I hand in the headphones and my bag. I said, I will go grab you a copy of the receipt. Give me a second. And the guy stood there. I hand him my bags. I asked him, did you want me the other bag? Because the other bag had like groceries in it. And he goes, no, I could tell that has groceries in it. So he watched me walk over to register 9. I said, hey, I know you're busy, because she had already had another person. I'm like, can you print me a receipt? He needs to see it. I set the doors off. And so she took her printed the receipt, gave it to me, goes, after she was done with the one woman. And she goes, here you go. I'm like, thank you. Walked over, handed, so here's this. But like I said, this being a safety issue for her, this situation, I think you did the right thing. And honestly, it just sounds like, I love how your boss is also behind you on this, saying, but you went under the tape. That common sense, man, your boss sounds cool. Like the fact that they're doing common sense of like, that's dangerous. Because like, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm so happy for you that you have like some nice coworkers and bosses that have some goddamn common sense. It is rare. All right, we're moving on before I blare on more about how I'm jealous that you have a good work environment.
And we can just dance